Congressman Raskin, thank you so much for joining us today on the show with your incredibly busy schedule, which has been full of holding the Trump administration accountable for their various crimes that we are seeing. And the best example, I think, of recently of how Democrats, although we are in the minority, have used our voices as much as we can is the shadow hearings you just held with Senator Adam Schiff. And you talked about the bravery of those fired DOJ officials in speaking out. But how do we get more elected Democrats to be brave in speaking out on the issues that I think Donald Trump is trying to drive a wedge between us on? If you look at Abrego Garcia or Mahmoud Khalil, Donald Trump knows that there will be some Democrats who feel a little queasy speaking out against his deportation plan or speaking out on about protests on college campuses. How do we get other Democrats to be as brave as you have been and those DOJ officials have been?
Well, it's great to be with you, Jack. Part of it is a question of bravery. And the thing I've been trying to emphasize to everybody is that courage and bravery are not the opposite of fear.
Mhm.
You can feel a lot of fear, and I think you'd be out of touch not to be feeling fear during this time because they're imposing a regime of fear and intimidation and terror on the country. Um, but being brave means feeling the fear and then going on anyway, experiencing the fear and then realizing that there are other people who are in an even more precarious situation than you are and moving on. But I think for elected officials, it's not so much a question of courage as of creativity. I mean, it's very easy to get into a rut, a rhythm of just going to your job and you push a red button or you push a blue button and you think that's what it means to be a representative. No, like to be a representative means to be an organizer, to be a
Mhm.
leader, to um, force the question when the question needs to be forced, but to be strategic and you know, nimble in terms of addressing the situation. And so I think all of us are learning the new skills that accompany an authoritarian takeover of our society. I mean, the reality is most legislators have had a very easy job compared to what the job is today. People are expecting us to be strategic fighters against this administration and organizers in our districts and in our communities. Um, and defiant spokespeople for democracy and freedom.
Yeah, as much as we possibly can, using the power that we have. And I think, of course, the most important thing we can do is message and be as loud as possible. It seems to be what the Trump administration is always trying to accomplish. Steve Bannon talks about flooding the zone with shit. And we certainly saw a lot of that today out of Donald Trump's Oval Office meeting with President Bukele, in which there were two notable moments that I want to get your thoughts on. The first was that both Donald Trump and President Bukele said that neither of them somehow had the power to return Abrego Garcia. But the other shocking moment was kind of a little picked up maybe on a hot mic, but Donald Trump saying that he wants to see more prisons built for American citizens to be sent to El Salvador. On both of those statements, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's start with the obvious. El Salvador and the United States are in some kind of partnership, although we haven't seen what the agreement specifically says, but they are no doubt our junior partner in this relationship of sending prisoners, sending people down to El Salvador. They are our agent. So the idea that we can't tell them to return somebody to the United States is absurd. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I think Christine Nome was down there. If she had been held by the prison, they would have gotten her back by now. That's just ludicrous. Both Trump and Bukele have the power to return Abreu Garcia to his family, to his home in Maryland. Um, so, um, you know, they might think that they can just build prisons all over the world, essentially have little Guantanamo bays all over the world. So they spirit people out of the country, and then suddenly they are invisible to due process in the American judicial system. And I think the Supreme Court um, repudiated that concept. I mean, they obviously were appealing to all nine justices, so it was worded in a somewhat light and spongy way at certain points. But basically, what they were saying is, no, you can't take somebody out of the country um, without giving them a due process hearing and charging them with something. That you can't just deliver people who are deemed enemies of the president to a torturer's prison in El Salvador.
No, of course not, and especially American citizens. We saw Carolyn Levitt suggest that maybe they were going to test out the legal possibility of sending American citizens and denaturalizing people, sending them wherever they want. What do you think the Trump administration's goal is, and what are they trying to accomplish when they know that they are ultimately going to get pushback from the court, but in an attempt to break the law?
Well, they don't know how far the court will go with them,
Mm.
right? I mean, this is the court that did declare the president immune to prosecution for felony crimes he actually commits under the offices of the core operations of the presidency, right? So, um, I think they will push it as far as they can go with the Roberts Court, and then, um, we have to mobilize the public sentiment to see that it stops there. But they're going to first push the court as far as it can go, and then they're going to try to push public patience and tolerance as far as it will go.
Do you think this is going to be the big legal fight that Donald Trump wants to have? Or do you think that's going to be coming closer to the midterm elections? Because we just recently saw the SAVE Act pass through the House of Representatives. We know that it's going to be a tool that Donald Trump will try to use to disenfranchise millions of voters. Do you think he wants a big legal fight now over immigration? We see, a case of whether he can fire Jerome Powell maybe coming up. Do you think Donald Trump wants his big legal battle to be over whether or not he can throw out millions of votes? Or do you think he can take up all of those fights in the court of public opinion and try to win them all with this court?
Well, right now, there are more than 65 preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders that have been issued against Trump in the federal courts on everything from his attempt to nullify birthright citizenship under the Constitution to the rendition of people who are lawfully resident in the United States to a torture prison in El Salvador, to the mass sacking of federal employees in the probationary status. So they have a lot of different options, as you're suggesting, Jack. Um, I believe that if they seem to be following the political philosophy of Carl Schmitt, who was kind of a hero to right-wing conservatives and fascists around the world. And the theory there is that you've got to pick the right enemy. And I think that they believe, especially after the debacle with the tariffs, that their best enemy is going to be um, non-citizens, um, and especially undocumented non-citizens. And they think that that's where the society will be on their side and will accept anything, um, including deporting them without due process, sending them to a dangerous prison in a third party country, and just leaving them there indefinitely. So that might be the fight that they want to stand on. I think that the fight that you mentioned in terms of the SAVE Act is far more short term instrumental for them. They know that they've already turned a strong majority of Americans against them with all of the lawlessness and the folly of their Herbert Hoover style economics. So they've got to look for a way to keep people from voting, and this SAVE Act is going to be an important part of their voter suppression tactics. I mean, what it says is that in order to address the fiction of illegal non-citizens voting in our elections, what they're going to do is require everybody to produce a birth certificate, a driver's license, or passport. And then, if they are in the class of 80% of married women who changed their names, they're going to have to produce a marriage certificate in order to show that their birth certificate, in fact, matches who they are today through the marriage certificate. This is, a blatant violation of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. I mean, it's clearly targeted at keeping
Mhm.
women from voting. Also, because if you don't have a driver's license, you've got to get a passport. There are millions of people who will be forced to go out and spend $125 or $140 for a passport. So it also implicates the poll tax per constitutional amendment, the 24th Amendment, which bans poll taxes in federal elections. So it's just a massive assault on voting rights. And, but I think that they would rather be fighting in the court of public opinion on immigrants versus citizens rather than, the government against women. But we'll see. I mean, they've thrown caution to the wind here.
And it seems like they really love taking up the government battles. Of course, in the court of public opinion, Elon Musk has done his best to win those. He's failed pretty miserably thanks to a lot of our messaging. But what he has done is kind of taken away and reshaped the idea of how we view the act of fixing and engaging in government. He has made it this negative thing where the right has co-opted it, right? We want to fix government. We want to make government better, but that doesn't mean attacking it. As progressives, we want to build a more progressive society that moves us forward because we know government can do that. How do you think Democrats take back the messaging that government can work for you when all we have seen from this administration is attempts to break government so then they can point to it and say, it doesn't work for you? How do we change how people feel about the systems Elon is trying to break for his own benefit?
Well, the the assault on American government is an opportunity for tremendous education. I mean, a lot of people your age don't really know the history of Social Security and
Mhm.
how it's the greatest anti-poverty program ever created, and how 70 or 80 million people are depending on it, and not just older people, but younger people with disabilities, survivors benefits, and so on. So part of it is educating people about what they're destroying. Like, a lot of people don't really have a sense of what the separation of powers means, or why we have an independent judiciary, and why it's so outrageous that this last week they're talking about impeaching the judges who have struck down their unconstitutional actions. So I think that there's a moment for tremendous education into what American constitutional democracy is and what have been the great achievements of American constitutional democracy. And then how are we going to build forward from here? And that includes everything from admitting new states to the Union. We've admitted 37 states. Well, we've got millions of disenfranchised people in the country. We got 3.5 million in Puerto Rico. We got more than 700,000 people in Washington, D.C., who are petitioning for statehood. They want to be admitted as a state. So, we shouldn't be talking about Greenland and Canada and Panama, which have not petitioned for statehood. And that's just imperial dreams on Trump's part, or else it's Elon Musk's dream of creating some kind of new confederation that would have a new constitution so he could run for president, because right now he can't, because he was born in apartheid South Africa and grew up there. And of course it shows, but he's not born in the United States. And, that was the provision that probably Jefferson got slipped in there to keep Alexander Hamilton from becoming president. But in any event, you've got to be a U.S. citizen to run for president under this constitution. And Elon Musk, is not a born U.S. citizen. So it doesn't quite fit in his case. And we know
And
that
thank God.
the Silicon Valley mafia, the way they see it is Asia will go to China. So forget the Tibetans and forget Taiwan and Hong Kong. And Putin can run rampant through Russia. They don't give a damn about that. Of course, they've pretty much switched sides already in terms of pulling the plug on the people of Ukraine. And then they want the U.S. to gobble up Greenland and Canada and Panama and other property here, so that they're going to have a revived manifest destiny. Meantime, the real struggles to deepen the meaning of democracy in the country continue, with statehood for DC and Puerto Rico, with a constitutional amendment guaranteeing the right to vote so it can't be stolen away with all these voter suppression tactics, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to reverse the damage of Shelby County versus Holder, and so on. So we've got a real democracy agenda, and then they basically have a vainglorious autocratic imperial agenda at the same time.
And one in which they're trying to buy up our elections. And I know you're busy, so I just want to close on this. Elon, his stay in the White House is soon going to be coming to an end, but I won't be shocked if he continues to try to use his vast wealth that was created through government subsidies to try to buy up our elections, really kind of bring it full circle with the corporate communism he enjoys so much. Do you think that Elon's money will carry him far, or do you think it will turn out more voters than he is able to buy up? Because we just saw in Wisconsin that Elon was kind of this energizing agent that gave a brutal loss to Donald Trump and Brad Schimmel. Do you think that'll continue to play out in the midterms just because of how tired people are of billionaires trying to buy our elections?
Well, it's going to be a race between their money and people's um, engagement and willingness to organize. And so, we all have to salute Ben Wickler and the great Wisconsin Democrats who made that happen. But that was a tremendous organizing job. That was the product not just of intense focus in this campaign, but many generations and cycles of organizing. And that's what we need to be going on all over the place. That's why my whole campaign now is just Democracy Summer, which is a project for young people to get high school and college age kids, apprentice age kids to come out and participate in political education and learn about the civilizing struggles of our time, and then learn from the best, political activists and elected officials and lawyers today. What are the struggles that are taking place around the country, and how can they be involved? So this is a moment of tremendous education for the young people who are willing to participate, but also tremendous opportunity to participate and make a difference in terms of what kind of country we're going to have.
Absolutely. Congressman Raskin, you are one of our best educators, one of our best fighters, and a personal hero of mine. Thank you so much for joining the show. I really
It's a great
appreciate it.
pleasure to be with you. Keep up your awesome work.
Absolutely.
Good luck in all your exams and everything.